I was 23 years old when this happened. I'm 27 now, and not a week has gone by where I haven't thought about that trip. It was supposed to be a celebration. Our friend Andrew had just turned 21, and we decided to take him to Vegas. Andrew was always the quiet one in our group. Laid back, shy, the kind of guy who'd rather hang out in the background than take center stage. None of us ever said it out loud, but we all knew he hadn't experienced much in life. The plan was simple: get him drunk, loosen him up, and maybe, just maybe, help him finally cross that line. We checked into the Carriage House Hotel, one of the cheaper places we could find, and split into 2 rooms, 7 guys in total. Andrew bunked with me and 3 others. We ate first, starving after the drive, then hit the casinos just so we could say we did it. Out of all of us, only one managed to walk away richer than he came in. After that came bar hopping, and by the time we stumbled into a nightclub, the night had blurred into neon lights, pounding bass, and drunken laughter. John and Eddie vanished with a pair of girls they picked up, shooting us that smug look that said, "We're about to get lucky." That left the rest of us to focus on Andrew. We begged him to talk to someone, anyone, but even with liquid courage in his system, he couldn't bring himself to do it. No dancing, no flirting, just awkward smiles and shaking his head. Desperation makes you do dumb things. And drunk desperation? That's worse. We decided to find him a working girl. I know how terrible that sounds, but at the time we were so hammered, it felt like a brilliant idea. That's when we spotted her. A woman walking alone, late at night. There was something off about her even from the start. Maybe it was the way she moved. Too slow, too deliberate. Or maybe it was her eyes, which never seemed to blink. We approached her like idiots, slurring and stumbling through the offer. Andrew hovered behind us, embarrassed but too drunk to stop it. The woman's voice was deeper than I expected when she finally spoke, unnervingly deep. She looked Andrew up and down like she was inspecting merchandise. Then, without saying much at all, she took his arm and started pulling him away. We laughed. Andrew looked stiff and uncomfortable, but we didn't question it. Not then. Out of curiosity more than anything, we followed at a distance. They didn't talk. Not once. She led him down darker and quieter streets until they disappeared inside what looked like an old apartment building. We hooped and cheered like idiots before heading back to the club, proud of ourselves. That was the last time we saw him that night. Hours later, around 2 a.m., we stumbled back into the hotel. Andrew wasn't in either room. I was sobering up, and the unease started creeping in. John and Eddie, back from their own escapades, were shocked when we told them what happened. I called Andrew. No answer. I texted. Nothing. The guys told me to chill. He was probably busy, but it didn't sit right. It was so unlike him. Eventually, exhaustion won and I passed out. Sometime before dawn, I woke to sound. A phone ringing. In my half-asleep haze, I thought it was my alarm and fumbled for my phone. But then I realized, no, it wasn't my alarm. It was an incoming call. From Andrew. My stomach dropped. The ringing had already woken up the others. I answered and put him on speaker. Heavy breathing. Panic. Shallow gasps. It was Andrew. He sounded terrified. His words came out in a frantic whisper, broken and hard to make out, like he was struggling just to speak. But through the static and the gasps, we caught fragments. It was that woman. Guys, you gotta get over here right now. We tried to talk to him, but he wouldn't answer. The other end went dead. No words, only a terrified silence. And then we started screaming into the phone, asking if he was okay, where he was, what was happening. My hands were trembling so badly I could feel it under my skin. Then something broke that silence. A door was thrown open with savage force, followed by Andrew's strangled, horrific scream. It cut across the line so raw and sharp that for a second none of us could breathe. Then the call dropped. We lost it. I called the police and tried to scrape together any memory of the route we'd taken the night before, but we had been so wasted I couldn't even recall which streets we'd walked. One of my friends insisted. He remembered the building. He led the officers past the club, down side streets, until we stopped in front of a shabby, half-forgotten structure. 2 officers in a patrol car went in. The rest of us were told to wait by the cruiser. Those minutes crawled and stretched, hours in the space of 5 breaths, until one of the officers came back out. She told us to come inside. They needed us to confirm a body. Everything collapsed. John and Jerry started crying openly. They couldn't bring themselves to go in. I couldn't leave them there. I followed the officer. The building wasn't an apartment at all. It was an abandoned storage place, dusty, cold, and smelling faintly of mildew and rust. In one open closet, a body slumped, half leaning out, eyes glassy, mouth hanging slack. Its face had the vacant expression of someone who had simply stopped being. It was horrible, but it wasn't Andrew. I knew instantly. The boy had blonde hair. Andrew's was black. The officers had already secured the space and were holding the scene. I checked the closet where, against some irrational hope, I'd felt Andrew might be hiding. Nothing, no phone, no sign he'd ever been there. We tried to bury it, to live in the dull ache that followed, but the nightmare wasn't finished. A little over a month later, my phone rang in the dead of night. I answered on instinct. The reception was terrible. I heard nothing at first. I was about to hang up when a faint, familiar voice whispered, "Jesse." "Andrew?" I yelled. On the other end came the slam of a door and then silence. The call dropped. I rang him 5 times after that. No answer. I called the police and asked them to trace the call. It didn't come from Nevada. It didn't come from anywhere we'd expect. The trace put it in New Jersey, our own town, and even gave an address only a few minutes from where I lived. They said they'd send someone. That wasn't enough. I drove there myself. The house at the corner was vacant, windows dark, lawn overgrown. I crept to the front door and pressed my ear against it. Nothing. I circled the back and found a window ajar. Upstairs there were soft snaps and creaks, the tiny, ordinary noises of someone pacing on old wood. I slipped through the house and barely had time to start when something at the edge of the hallway froze me in place. Someone stood there, back turned, head bowed. I couldn't see a face, only pale, exposed legs and a curtain of long black hair falling past the shoulders. The air went cold. I heard my own breath and then, beyond it, a faint sound like a whispering lullaby that didn't belong anywhere sane. That's where it stops, right on the edge of the hallway, with that shape between me and whatever was upstairs. It was a woman. My stomach turned to ice the moment I saw her in the hallway. Every stupid horror movie instinct in me screamed that she was a charge, that she'd lunge forward with those black hair and pale legs like something from a nightmare. Instead, she spun away and ran, fast, urgent, down the stairs. A door slammed. Footsteps thundered downstairs, then a pair of voices, shouting male and female, cut through the house. Then heavier footsteps pounded back up the stairs. That was my cue to move. I bolted for the backyard and dove into the bushes. 5 seconds later, the man on the stoop stepped out. For the first time in months, luck slid back toward me. A police car squealed up the curb, lights flashing. I heard the man mutter something on the porch before he slammed the door shut behind him. The cops went straight inside. Apparently the idiot hadn't even locked it. I stayed crouched in the bushes because I did not want to surprise the officers and end up getting shot for my trouble. Minutes later, an officer emerged with a man in handcuffs. I introduced myself and warned them there was also a woman in the house. They searched. They never found her. One of the upstairs bedroom windows was wide open, whatever that meant. She had vanished. They did find Andrew. He was locked in a closet upstairs. He was a ruin, malnourished, hair long, filthy, clumped with grime. The smell hit like a physical thing, rotting and sweet and wrong. He looked like time had been eating him alive. When the officers ran the man's name, they found nothing obvious, no wife, no records tying him to anyone. He said he'd only known the woman a day. He said she and whoever she represented were the ones in charge. Nothing made sense. Nothing still does. Andrew finally told us what had happened. He'd been raped, beaten, starved. He told us about the woman who had first escorted him to that building. She wasn't there to be with him. She was a recruiter, a collector. She'd been sent to fetch payment for what the man called the operators. They made Andrew give them names, hometowns, addresses of everyone from that night. That explained why the call had come from our town, but it did nothing to explain their intent, whether they wanted to abduct us, enslave us, or worse. Out of our whole group, Andrew told me alone. When others asked, I lied. I said I didn't know. I still don't know a lot of things. Things started to look like they might settle back into some ugly, manageable normal, until the messages began. One night, I got a text from a random number. It said only one word. You, whoever it was, they blocked me after that, so I couldn't reply. I blocked them back. Then it happened again the next week and the next month. Short, empty words, anonymous threats that felt like breaths on the back of my neck. I suspected it had to do with what happened, but I had no idea how far they'd take it. Then came the night the porch light woke me. It wasn't sunlight. It was a harsh yellow from the backyard, one of those old lights that makes everything look wrong. I saw a shadow moving across the blinds and felt my heart retreat into my throat. Someone stood at the window, looking right at me, waiting. I inched the blind up a fraction. They were gone before I could grab my phone. I'm certain now it was the woman from that house. That was the last time I saw or heard from anyone involved. The last concrete thing in the whole rotten chain. Nothing about this whole situation has made a single ounce of sense, even with Andrew's explanations. I won't go into how he and the others are doing. It's not interesting, and it's not mine to tell. The only thing I know for sure is that I'm waiting. Waiting for the next time I see one of those animals on a dark street, or in the corner of a bar, or glaring at me through a window. When I do, I won't be the kid who hides in the bushes. I'll call the police. If I have to, I'll do the rest myself. And if they come for me tonight, I'll be ready